right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Passive Cash Flow Podcast. We have an amazing guest today. We have John Shari. Say hello, John. How are we doing today?
How's everybody doing out there?
Excellent. I think everyone's doing excellent. That would be my assumption because it's a beautiful Friday. The sun is shining and the hurricane has come and gone. And you know what? I think that this coronavirus, it's going to come and go as well. I got a good feeling. I think we're going to nip this thing in the bud pretty soon. What do you think?
I agree. Let's certainly hope so. Let's get this over with, get it behind us, and move on.
Yeah, I was driving around today. I saw more businesses opening up, and I saw different things going on. So pretty interesting stuff going on. But anyway, John Shari, attorney here, talking a little bit about what you do and how you do it.
Sure. Well, I've been an attorney for over 16 years. I do, well, basically any sort of commercial transactions, commercial real estate. I represent a lot of investors. I represent a lot of lenders, just people generally doing business or selling their business and buying a business, and also some estate work. So I have a mainly transactional focused practice. And I believe one of the things you want to talk about today is operating agreements and LLCs.
Oh, yes. Everyone's favorite topic.
Magical world of LLCs and operating agreements.
Oh, yes. Back to the real world. No. Yes. Well, LLC operating agreements are arguably the most important document we execute with our passive investors when we're buying a piece of real estate. So here, People's Capital Group, as you know, is our attorney for many commercial transactions. We buy apartment buildings with passive investors, and we give them equity in these buildings. And one way we protect our investors and work with our investors is through an operating agreement, which overviews their risks and rewards and the rules in the company here. So as our attorney that helps us with those operating agreements, what are some of the most important things people should look for when they're reviewing an operating agreement?
Well, there's a lot of things, actually. But before we even get into that, let's take a little step back and just talk very briefly about what actually is an LLC. LLC is basically just a legal form of entity. You may have heard of C corporations, S corporations, limited partnerships, sole proprietorships. But LLCs are kind of unique in the fact that they offer limited liability to the investor, which means that an investor, once you give money to the LLC, only that money is at risk. None of the investor's personal assets are at risk. Now, there's some very, very rare exceptions to that, but for the most part, that rule holds true. So any personal assets of an investor are protected. And that's what when you hear the word limited liability, that's essentially what that means. But there's more benefits of the LLC. It's very, very flexible. You can choose the tax status you want. And we don't have to get into that to depth right now, but just know that's very, very flexible, and it's especially good for investing in real estate. And to go back to your original question, what kind of things does a investor really want to see in the operating agreement? The operating agreement is essentially like the terms of how the partners and investors will not only operate the company, but also how those investors treat each other and what they can and can't do. So for an operating agreement, you want to make sure, obviously, that first of all, you have an operating agreement with the investment in the LLC.
Pretty important.
It's not required technically by law. I don't know if you know that, but it's always smart to certainly have one.
Yes.
The operating agreement will basically have, the formation, what are the names of the registered agent, the person who receives any kind of mailings from the government or correspondence from the government. It'll go through how the company itself operates, when expenses are paid, how compensation is paid. It will go through things like when the LLC has their annual meeting. Does it have it in January? Does it have more meetings? And especially important for investors is voting rights. How are the voting rights structured? Because most operating agreements, and the smart way to kind of structure it, is to allow the managing member to do whatever they need to do during the ordinary course of business without requiring a vote of all members. But then only have a vote required of all members for certain specific events, like adding a new member, like selling the property, or any big events, because you don't want to run a business where every single little purchase, every $5, $10 purchase, you actually have to go back to the investors and ask them if it can be done.
Right.
So you generally want to structure it so the people who are running the business can run the business effectively and efficiently, but the investors also have the power to approve, the non-ordinary course sort of events, the big events that happen. So that's always a very important thing for everybody to take a look at, and what things are voted on and how and what requirement or level they're required to vote on. So in other words, you just need a simple majority? Do you need 2/3 majority? Do you need a full unanimous vote on certain things? So those are certain important considerations to look at as an investor in any business or LLC in this case.
Right, and then to go a step further, if the members don't have voting rights and you're putting together a pool of investors like we do, and the members are passive investors, silent investors, non-voting members, then you have to file with the SEC most of the time, right? That falls into a security.
That's a little different. That's another conversation. But yes, that's a private placement agreement of usually a 506B or 506C application to the SEC. Basically, just letting the government know of the offering, because technically it is a security offering, similar to GM would do if they were offering stock. So you still have to follow certain guidelines as a sponsor, but you always want to invest with sponsors or syndicators who understand that concept and who properly do things by the book. So it's certainly a good point for you to bring that up. But to go into that any further is going to require an hour in and of itself discussing that. But yeah, it's as an investor, just know that there are some security laws that have to be taken care of by the sponsor. And whenever you're talking to a sponsor and they understand that, you're obviously dealing with a more sophisticated sponsor.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we do whenever we're closing on a piece of real estate. Of course, we do file with the SEC because our investors are non-voting members, and that's required to report that to the SEC. So, it's interesting in real estate, the different ways people can structure things and the different rules people have. And that's incredible. I didn't know you could have an LLC without an operating agreement. Have you ever seen that before?
Yes. Usually there's nothing in, at least under New Jersey law, that requires an LLC to have an operating agreement. So more often than not, people who are single member LLCs will not have an operating agreement because they just don't really need to. It's just them.
Right.
The only case for a single member LLC would require an operating agreement is if they're going to get a loan from a bank or some kind of other private lender who are required to see proof of an operating agreement to make sure that they're the only person there, that there's no funky approvals required, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, if there's more than one member in an LLC, you need to have an operating agreement. It's just not required by law.
Right, exactly. And then, so if someone doesn't have an operating agreement and they're looking to have you draft one, what would that cost if you say you had like just a few members in an LLC, not a very complicated, but a few partners buying a piece of real estate?
It depends. If it's just a simple sort of fix and flip kind of thing, there's maybe two partners and they're both contributing services to the business. It's not very, very difficult. It maybe would be an hour or two at most of work for me to do. But if you're getting into more sophisticated joint venture agreements for development of real estate, then that's a different story. Then it depends on what the deal is, what they're developing, and it depends on how many members there are and how sophisticated those members are. So that would be on the opposite extreme as very, very complicated. But a simple sort of syndication type sort of thing, it's not too difficult to do. And certainly for like a basic fix and flip or investment in real estate, it's really just a couple hours of work.
Now, this is a bit of a different topic, but I talk to people all the time that are starting businesses, and they say, "Oh, well, I'm going to start my LLC in Delaware because there's like a sales tax benefits there," or "I'm going to start my LLC in Nevada because it's hard to pierce the veil of an LLC." But I've also been told by attorneys that it really doesn't matter. The state you're doing business in is the state that the laws apply to. So you might as well just start the LLC in the state you're doing business in. What's your school of thought on that?
Well, it depends, unfortunately. If you are a startup company and you want to be the next Facebook and you're getting or intend to receive professional money from venture capitalists, then you have to be a Delaware entity. There's no way around it because that's who they're used to dealing with. And venture capitalists get their money from pension plans and other things that can't invest in, generally can't invest in LLCs. It has to be a C Corp and generally do not like investing in any other states besides either Delaware and occasionally California. So in that sense, if you're starting that kind of business, you need to be a Delaware C Corp.
And why is that though? Is that because Delaware, what's the benefit there?
Well, the benefit there is that in Delaware, there's very, very highly established court system to process business disputes and issues. And investors, I mean, at the very high level for those technology investors, those venture capitalists, they are used to Delaware law. They understand Delaware law, and they're just used to using that state and investing in companies that have been formed in that state. And they have to be C corps for that. You can't really generally not do an LLC for that because, again, the venture capitalists get their money from the big pension funds, institutional investors who are technically in many ways not allowed to invest in pass-through entities, which is an LLC. So for that sort of work, you need to be Delaware. But if you're investing in if you're starting a small business, like you're going to start a restaurant, you're starting a consulting company of some kind, you're investing in real estate in New Jersey, then you want to just be a New Jersey LLC. It keeps things as simple as possible, and you don't really need to go the route of having to go to Delaware to form the company, have a registered agent in Delaware, and then actually, if you're doing mainly your business in New Jersey, what you then have to do is apply to New Jersey for foreign entity approval to operate in New Jersey. So it's basically you're really putting a lot of time, money, and effort into going through Delaware to operate in New Jersey. So in those cases with a smaller business, you want to be in the state where you're operating.
Well, what about the $30,000 education package gurus that tell you should start an LLC in Nevada because you can't pierce the corporate veil in Nevada?
Well, that's not 100% accurate about not piercing the corporate veil in Nevada. The corporate veil, I'm sure, could be pierced in Nevada. It's just that Nevada has very, very high confidentiality rules. So without a court order, they will not disclose who the members of the LLC are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Nevada is very good. And also Nevada is very good because I don't believe they have any corporate taxation. So one plan for people, and it's again a little bit more complicated, but one plan for certain investment vehicles and businesses is to start a Nevada LLC, elect S Corp status, and then transfer all your assets. Let's say in New Jersey, let's say you own a pizzeria, you transfer all your assets to the Nevada LLC in terms of ownership, and then you pay and lease that equipment back to your other business, and that way you're basically reducing your income tax in New Jersey and feeding it to the Nevada LLC, which has no corporate tax, at least at the state level. So there you can do some funky stuff with different entities, and depending on what sort of goals you have. But for real estate right now, it's very, very simple. Thankfully, you just for the most part have to have a New Jersey LLC if you're investing in New Jersey property.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what we do. All of our LLCs are New Jersey based, and we run our operations out of New Jersey. Now, what if you're buying a property in a different state? Okay, let's say but I live in New Jersey, but I want to buy a property in Vermont, and but my operations are going to be primarily out of New Jersey, management-wise and things like that. However, I am hiring people in Vermont to clean the properties and maintain them, and service providers and subcontractors. And what would you suggest there? Would I start a New Jersey LLC or would I start Vermont LLC?
If it's a one-off sort of deal, in other words, you're just doing a raise for that property, and there's no parent company structure, then you could just do a Vermont LLC and do it that way. But once companies get bigger, they may often not structure it that way. They may structure it, whatever state they're from, and then that state invests in separate subsidiary companies, and each subsidiary company owns a piece of real estate. Under that case, it'd be a little different. But for each one-off, if you're buying a property in Vermont, it might as well just be a Vermont LLC.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. All right, great. Well, that's some good information. I really enjoy what we're talking about here. Now, how can people reach you, and what are some services that you would provide to just any type of business owner or real estate investor?
Well, you can reach me at my website, jmstransactions.com. I have all my contact information there, and there's a lot of information about the business and what sort of businesses I can help. But I've been in-house counsel for a lot of businesses, so I can help with ongoing operations. I do a lot of formation startups of businesses, as well as sales of businesses, and as I'm sure you know, a lot of commercial real estate, and the occasional estate plan as well for certain clients, for certain special clients. So really, I run almost the full spectrum of transactional type of work. But I'm very easy to talk to. I like talking about these sort of things. So if anybody has any questions about anything, any of the viewers, your viewers, feel free to reach out to me. And I'd be more than happy to talk about whatever situation or business situation you have or that I can help you with. And if it's something that I can't help you with, I'll be more than happy to point you in the direction of some good people who can help you.
Yep, and I can definitely vouch for that. John's been a great attorney for us. And you know, what I like about you, John, you provide great service, but you don't break the bank. And that's really important when you're trying to run a business. You know?
Well, I'm trying to have long-term clients, you know, and repeat business and people I like working with, good people, like just like you guys. You know, I like working with you. I want to work with you guys in the future.
Absolutely. What's your website one more time?
jmstransactions.com. And if you just do a search for my name, John Shari, last name Shari, it'll pop right up.
Man, I've been calling you John Shari for the longest time.
You know, I've heard that all my life, so I don't even pick up on it. Technically, it's pronounced Shari, but Shari works as well.
Shari. Okay,
yeah,
that's good.
I've heard it both ways my entire life, so like I said, I don't even pick up on it anymore.
I know a guy who his name is Ryan, and you call him he wants Ryan. And you call him Ryan, he gets upset. It's very confusing. I don't know. Yeah. You got to pick and choose what you get upset about in this world. You know?
Exactly. You let certain things just wash over you and just, you know, move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we'll put your website in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And this is great. I think it's been very informative. You know, I know it's a bit of a dry topic, but it's a very important topic. And I can see your passion for it, which is great. You know, even on this beautiful sunny day, I enjoy talking about LLC operating agreements. Imagine that, huh?
Yes, the magical world of LLC operating agreements.
Hey, without them, where would we be, right? We need these things.
You need them.
Oh, my gosh. Where would we be? Those slip and falls. Woo-wee. Thank goodness for LLCs.
That's right.
All right, my friend, you enjoy your day there, and you have a good one.
You too. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.